Welcome to another episode of Let's See. Yo! Wow. As promised, I'm going to show you some of the ceramics from my very first ceramic class, and that was in January. I made a few pieces and I'd never thrown before, so I discovered that I'm a bit more of a hand building girl. I did a class for 10 weeks and it was hand building and throwing. Throwing is when you use the wheel and you put a ball of clay on the wheel, center it, pull the sides up, and then you make stuff out of it. I think throwing is very interesting. It takes a lot of skill. You don't really think about anything else while you're doing it. It takes a lot of technique and physicality, and I really enjoyed it, but I don't find it as interesting as hand building, and I didn't anticipate that. Especially, I guess I'm also influenced, when you on Instagram and you see all these people pulling all these things up, it looks so cool and so satisfying, and I think that's a wonderful skill to have. But I noticed that hand building is way more in line with the way that I enjoy art making. It's also much slower, and that's something that's important for me. Every step of the way I'm pinching, like smearing, pulling, pushing, and that's something that I absolutely fell in love with. Okay, so that lighting situation wasn't working. I think this will be better and you can get a better look at what these look like. I think that's better. Yes, it is better. So as I said, I started with these pinch pots, right? They kind of go together, they're a little duo, and they are the beginning of this lovely journey. They were very quick, and that's why they're very heavy as well. I didn't know about, how light they will be after they dry and how much of the heaviness is water, so I was still figuring that out. I believe this is high firing clay. All of the stuff that I'm showing you is with the same clay. I'm in a spring ceramics class and I'm having the time of my life, but there are only 2 lessons left. But what I've learned about ceramics is that, especially in the phase of learning, it's difficult to have these concrete plans. I've had all these ideas of what I want to do and what I want to make, but when I get there, I don't want to do it and I don't feel like it, and I won't do it when I don't feel like it. I can't. I can feel it inside. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. So last week was one of my favorite classes, and I made this this vessel that reminded me a little bit of a basket at first because it was unbalanced and warped, and I really liked that. And I had gone there with all these ideas of what I wanted to do, but I just ended up making that and focusing on that. And I truly believe that's what it was meant to do. And the purpose of these classes is for me to learn and to be present while I'm doing them. So I'm not going there to extend the pressure of the world and the pressure of my day that says do things in this order, like this, according to plan, to meet the goals and apply yourself and do those things. No, a part of creativity is using intuition and using everything that's informed the present to create something that is of the present. So I love it so much, and I love how everyone sits there and chats. It feels very much like a community, and it's just women sitting there working on their art, talking about all sorts of different things, sometimes politics, sometimes movies, sometimes nothing, and it just feels like this ancient practice where women were doing this together, and I love that connection. So yes, this is a reminder to take that class. take that class that you've always been craving. Take the class that you've always wanted to do, no matter how silly it sounds. I have an aunt who started ballet lessons, I think, in her 60s, and before that, I think she felt silly or like, oh no, I couldn't or I can't. And now it's just a part of her life and a part of her week. I think she goes twice a week, and she's retired. That's the stuff. Of course, not everyone's able to do that, but if there is something that you can do for yourself that feeds that part of your soul that's craving something, do it. Do it. It will be very rewarding. It might not be easy, but it will be very rewarding. So, I made some bowls. And one thing that's difficult about throwing is keeping size, especially when you're learning. Keeping size, thickness, form, and shape consistent is really hard. So I threw a couple of bowls. These bowls, along with 2 bowls that I messed up because I pressed too hard on the bottom, and that meant that there were holes in the bottom. My teacher was open to the idea of me making something else out of them, but for him, the goal as a teacher is to teach me how to prevent that kind of mistake. But the kind of person I am, I'm like, I don't feel like it. I don't really want to master that right now, but I am interested in how to put things together. I am interested in how things can change. So I had these 2 very different bowls. If you can imagine, this one was rounder, as you can see, and I had kind of done this one with some steps, right? And both had holes at the bottom. And then I just rolled out a piece of clay and stuck it to the bottom of one of them. And then I stuck this one on top of this one. But then we had another issue, which was that the seam between the 2 bowls was too noticeable, and I didn't like it, and they were too hard to blend. So I used some colored slip that was green to join them after I painted the bottom one blue. Like my teacher says in my current class, a lot of design solutions come from the limitations of what you're doing. For example, you're not supposed to paint the bottom of the piece because it can stick to the kiln cake, and that means that you can damage the kiln and all of these things. So sometimes people will put a foot ring like this so that they can have this touching the bottom, but everything else can have color. Do I have an example of that? I do have an example. This is from my current class. Here's a sneak peek, but this is an example of how you can use a foot to glaze everything without having to worry about that. But I did still wipe here. This is a Woolworths little coffee tumbler thing, and this is the original color of the clay, but they put wax on this, or they wiped it after dipping it in this color. I hope that makes sense. I'm not a ceramicist, right? This is my first ceramic class, so I'm not going to be able to explain everything. This is just to give you a window into what I enjoy, and this channel is also an extension of my practice. So it's a place where I can explore themes and ideas and things that I like and enjoy about art making, and this is a part of it. In my previous class, he said that we could put underglaze on the bottom of our pieces. So that's why I don't actually have a rim on here. I thought it would just be fine, and I was happy to have something that was flat. This is something that I'm very proud of because I like design or art solutions when something doesn't go according to plan and then it becomes something new. I think that is something that is so common in life. It's all over the place. We create out of restriction, and restriction or mistakes cultivate an creativity. So that's a part of why I love this so much. And at the time, I was starting to go to the swimming pool in my building, and this was inspired by the indoor pool and the tiles. So I continued the pool idea, right? So this has some pool textures in there, and then a little bit of a nod to the swimming pool tiles on the outside, and then a touch of water on the edge. It was just an experimentation. All the color is under glazes, and this is a crayon, a ceramic crayon. Then after that, you put it in a clear glaze to give it this shiny effect. But this is a colored glaze on its own, and this was a blue. I dunked it in a blue glaze, and then I dunked it in a white glaze. Once I made this, I let it dry to the state where it was leather hard. And that means that when I scrape it, it won't be all mushy and wet, but it will carve a line nicely with the tool. So I painted this thing blue, and then I scraped these tiles, revealing the color of the clay, which is this white color, right? So that's what I did here, is this kind of carving, similar to lino, what else? Block printing, but just similar but different, right? Here, this was graffito, which is scratching into an underglaze, and then I did that here, and I did that here, right? And then, because I enjoy this idea of resist, what did I use? Here, I used wax. So I used wax on bisque-fired clay. I'll put a thing of what bisque-fired clay is. So after I bisque-fired this, I put wax on it, and then I dunked it into 2 glazes. Okay, next. Phew! Next is, let me tell you about this tumbler idea. So I had this idea to make these very nostalgic whiskey tumblers that are associated with my childhood and a lot of people's childhoods in South Africa. It's this brown, I think it's called a Wexford glass, and I associate it with my grandmother's house and a lot of my childhood and drinking cool drink and enjoying my youth. The first one wound up like this. This again, underglaze in blue, scratched into it. So here I'm trying to scratch that pattern. It's just the idea of that cup. And then I wanted it to look a little bit transparent and water, and I was just thinking about that. And this is what ended up coming out. I'm happy with it in terms of this is the beginning of an idea, right? It's obviously very far from perfect, and it's also very short. If you look at this tumbler, I wanted to continue exploring this idea. So I made more. Obviously, I was a beginner and I didn't know how to make things the same shape and the same height and the same size. So this was the next one after, which is a little bit more of a tumbler shape, but I underestimated how much clay shrinks after you fire it. So then, last minute, while I'm glazing this, I'm like, cream, this is inspired by cream soda, and it's more of a simple design, and then I added this white, and I don't like the white part, but I do like this, and I'm thinking of reglazing it in this class, just because this strong drip isn't the one. So here is one that's inspired by Fanta orange. That's why there's that orange line there. But it's also inspired by Fanta pineapple, hence the yellow. And the bottom was supposed to be darker like that. It didn't come out as dark as at the bottom, but it was supposed to be inspired by Iron Brew. So this one is just all of those cool drinks. Oh, and ginger beer, Stony. So this one was kind of like, oh, Fanta Pine, Fanta Orange, Iron Brew, Stony vibe, trying to do it all in one. And because I was rushing, I didn't round this off. So it's very sharp, but it might be nice for painting and getting that excess water off with that kind of, sharpness. Because when you think about utility and ceramics, something sharp like this you wouldn't want to put your mouth on something with such a sharp edge, even though it's not going to cut you. It's like you don't want to put your lips on something like this, right? So that's that. And then this was the last one. I thought, you know what, these ones with the paint underglaze and all this didn't really work the way I thought. Let me see what happens if I dip it in green, and maybe it will be like Sparletta, Sparberry, cream soda. So both of those vibes in one cup. And I really like how this came out because it's a nod to it, but it doesn't have all the cut glass detail. And see, I put that thing at the bottom because the Wexford glasses have these cut star things at the bottom. I just made it a simple shape there. Another thing is time slips away, and then I also did it here. I just have to sand these little pieces. Okay, and then the other thing I did in actual glaze was after a relative was rude, very rude, and I was feeling frustrated and I was struggling to let it go. So this was supposed to be a mug with a handle, but I didn't have time to make it. And it was just a quick rush thing, so it weirdly has a red bottom. And it says, "Talk to me nicely." I really like this movement and drip. So this is just a random one. I like, talk to me nicely. Talk to me nicely. Oh, then we have my sign / plates. We have this one. That's the back. It's just got my name and it's green. And then we have this plate. that I really like, and it also has my name at the back. So I really enjoyed doing this. I was very stressed, and I also really wanted to do my hair. And I had been craving doing my hair for a while. So Less Stress Beauty Salon, I was wanting to be home. And now you have a sneak peek. The only piece I have from after these 10 weeks of, after the 7 week, after the 7 weeks of being in this second class, I only have one thing I brought back, and it's this. It's this bowl. Oh, I really like it. I didn't know it was gonna come out like this. And it's got some aloes. well, what was supposed to be some aloes. I like that it's just kind of vague texture, but everything else is these squiggles. It is also a pinch pot. It's the pinch pot we did in our first lesson, and I wanted to keep more of the feeling of a pinch pot, so it has more of that inside. A lot of green, eh? But yeah, I really like this one. I'm excited for what's coming next. I think I want to represent this idea flat. It might work better flat, and maybe next week I'll just try one more. I'll try one more to get that sense, but I really do. I know that this one might not be liked or whatever. Like my one friend was looking and she's like, don't know, doesn't matter. This one for me has a bit of that feeling that I was going for, even though the shape isn't it. It just feels like, oh, okay, this is what you're trying to say. And I also like that it has these bubbles.
Bubbles.
And I don't think it's supposed to have bubbles or get bubbles. Like I think it's wrong for it to get bubbles.
Bubbles.
I'm gonna show the bubbles. But the bubbles remind me of a fizzy drink. Come on. Okay. So I think because I want to represent these flat, might as well do a sketch for that idea. I'm working on making my ideas quicker, because otherwise they often stay in a book, undone, never touched, never finished. And it's really hard to get those things out. But like I said last week, I'm pushing myself to do it and get these things out of me, get these ideas out of me and enjoy. So I'm gonna do that. I just found this picture of me with this glass 2022 December in the t-shirt I'm wearing now. I love this t-shirt. And it was during load shedding, and I think I did a little journal thing about load shedding or something. I remember it was in the kitchen. I remember this day. I do want to say that I think for me, it's good to not have too many problems on the page, but a part of figuring things out is one solution at a time. So basically, I'm gonna draw this 500,000 times. I'm just kidding. I'm gonna draw this again and again, and I'm gonna realize different things that are wrong, right? And then there's also stuff that might be wrong that facilitate my expression. And there's some marks that I make now that I may end up keeping. So that's why I don't like to trace. I want to strengthen my drawing skills. And also one of my favorite things about art is looking. Yeah, I feel like tracing the image would stop me from all of the choices I'm making and all of the looking that I'm doing. If I chose to trace, it would probably also save me a lot of agony. A lot of, or why didn't I do this? Well, now I have to move the whole thing down. Do I move the whole thing down because I drew it too high? Do I change this? Do I change that? All these problems. But what can I say? What can I say? Another thing is that I'm gonna make a lot of mistakes along the way. Might as well embrace them and get them out of the way instead of and then I'm just taking so long to make mistakes. It's a part of it. Oh my goodness gracious. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for joining me at the beginning of my journey. Hey, yo, what a time. Thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful evening, afternoon, morning, whatever it is. And I'll catch you on the next one. Bye. This is what looking does. Looking and drawing, I'm not telling anyone what to do, obviously. I'm just saying this is what works for me. It teaches you things about who you're looking at. I did a portrait of my father. I learned so many things and it was so interesting and so informative and I loved it so much. With me, like here for example with my lips, let me show you here. I look so unbothered. You see how the shadow of the lip isn't the same as, you see? So that line at the bottom isn't the same as the actual lip line. So when I'm painting it, it's gonna be interesting. Someone else might just say, let me take that shape, flat shape, and do something like that. There it is. There's her bottom lip. Okay, now top one, what is it giving? Okay, some impossible. You know, but you can do whatever. You can do whatever.